right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the members' meeting. My name is Leslie Daigle. I'm the chair of the NANOG board. And before we get going, I'd like to introduce the people who are here and who are not. But Jonathan, introduce yourself.
Take my live mic. Jonathan Black, Executive Director, NANOG. Pleasure to serve you all. Been coming up on a year and a half.
John Van Oppen, I'm the newest elected board member, and this is my first meeting on the board. So looking forward to helping everybody out and trying to figure out everything we do to make NANOG better.
Vince Lindrow, Vice Chair of the Board of Directors, and I'm sure you guys are sick of seeing my face, so.
Never.
And I'm Adair Thaxton. I am the chair of the program committee, so I'm an ex officio non-voting member of the board.
We have two members who are missing and online. That's Michael Costello and Steve Feldman, each of whom had personal reasons they couldn't join us this week. And Steve Ulrich is recently appointed to the board, as I'll get into in a minute, and he had a previous conflict for today. All right. It just feels very lonely up here. So today's agenda. We have some board updates, the usual financial report, and then Jonathan will give an update on some of the organizational activities and the goals. So the board composition, there was, as you know, an election. Trying not to destroy the place. There was an election in October, I was reelected to the board. Michael Costello was reelected for a 2-year term, and we welcome John Van Oppen, who was also elected for a 3-year term. There were some midterm changes, as I said on the email list. Kat Gorinsky, unfortunately, had to resign her position from the board on January 23rd of this year for personal reasons, and we reappointed Steve Ulrich to fill the vacancy from February 1st through the end of this year. So that's the current, those are the changes in board composition since we last met. This is my opportunity to remind everybody, because you haven't heard it yet, that this is the season for appointments to the board committees. So all members are eligible to volunteer for the NANOG board committees. These are the committees we have, and we encourage you to please volunteer for one or more committees. The applications are open until 9 p.m. tonight. So we look forward to working with you all on those committees. So it is also the season for reviewing the state of the NANOG bylaws. We do this every year to see whether or not there are things that should be updated, adjusted, brought into line with reality. So that's where we are now. As you may also remember, we had some bylaw changes for last year. One of the pieces of feedback we got was that people didn't like having to do an up-down vote on the total set of changes that we were proposing to the bylaws, as opposed to individually voting on the changes. So we've heard that. There are times when we really do have to put collections of things together, because if one passed and the other didn't, we would be in an indeterminate state. So those things we will keep grouped together, but we won't just give you an omnibus deal like what we've done with the bylaws, yes, no vote. But in terms of the things that we're thinking of, there are a couple of changes that we're looking at for the purposes of protecting NANOG. These are the things that we're looking at. We haven't committed to making proposed changes, but we wanted to give you all a heads up, also give you the opportunity to give some input. So we will be clearer in June whether or not there will in fact be proposed changes to the bylaws for these things. So this is an advanced update. So the two areas of protecting NANOG we're particularly looking at are preventing board capture, which is to say preventing an organization or a set of individuals deciding that they want to own NANOG and drive it around for a while, which is just a general good governance type approach to adjusting the bylaws. It turns out, though, of course, if you want to make sure that people can't capture things, you run the risk of making it too hard for people to be participants in this process. So that's the other extreme that we would absolutely want to avoid. So for instance, saying that you had to have attended, 50 NANOGs if you wanted to be able to vote would be perhaps too high a bar. But perhaps we might expect people to have demonstrated some involvement in NANOG before they were casting a vote on how to populate the board. So those are the sorts of things we're thinking of there. If you have particular thoughts, experiences from other organizations, we'll certainly be happy to hear them. Another area that we're looking at is mechanisms for the removal of a board member. It turns out that in the course of the year, as the board is working, things can happen, stuff can crop up such that a board member is unexpectedly unavailable or is otherwise not unable to contribute in a constructive fashion. And yeah, sometimes these things it's not the sort of thing that you can tell the whole world, hey, this is going on, what do you think we should do about it? So in that kind of a context, it makes sense for the board to be able to remove a board member in extraordinary circumstances. And extraordinary circumstances really are the key question, right? How do you capture those? How do you frame those? How do you make sure that you don't have a rogue board chair who's going to say, nope, don't like you, don't like your hair color, I want my friends. So obviously that has to be shaped with care as well. Other issues that we're looking at, board term limits. It turns out that this is one of the cases where we have a corner case where we have clarity that a director may serve no more than a total of 6 years consecutively, but it's conceivable that given, partial term appointments and whatnot, that a director could reach 6 years in the middle of an elected term. And so what's the expected outcome there? Do they say, I'm done and resign, or do we not allow them to run for a term that would cause them to be in that state, or what? So it's just a question of tidying that up and resolving the ambiguity. And then there's miscellaneous other changes for cleanup with regards to things that have been adjusted in the past and whatnot. So this is what we're looking at. In terms of things that we have done, we formerly had 3 financial policies. We've updated it. So there are 2 financial policies, the internal financial controls policy and the investment and reserves policy, because previously the 3 policies were somewhat interrelated and sometimes self-conflicting. So this is just to produce some clarity. Yeah. And so there was clarification in terms of who's able to authorize withdrawal from the reserves, and remove some of the hard numbers in the policies to enable more flexibility with circumstances. And I think that's about all I want to say there. And then I'll hand it to Jonathan for the real money talk.
The real money talk. Don't take the grim look on the question asker's face as any indication of the news we're going to get. Revenue this past year was actually good. We had a very good year. You can see here over last year, well, we don't have an over last year number. We did end up slightly in the red again this year. These figures are all unaudited, just to clarify that. These are from internal statements. There have not been large restatements in the past. We don't expect these to change in any material way, but I want to clarify that for you. The audit will sometimes move things from category to category, but we haven't had any issues in the past. We had a couple of very significant donations this year. NANOG ceased operations and they decided to grant us their reserve fund. So thank you to those involved in NANOG for that donation. Yeah, fantastic. We also had, we take donations through the year, and we often have 20 donations. We had one donation this year from someone, we don't know who that was, of $3,600. So if you are in the room or online, thank you very much. It's much appreciated. Just to highlight, that we are a charitable organization and do issue tax receipts. Revenue for this year broken down as follows. January to December, you can see those figures. Those are the expenses for the year and the categories in which they fall. Again, it was a slightly in the red figure. this is probably a more relevant slide. This is 2024 to 2025. Really what we can see here is revenue is up 21%. Expenses are only up 11%. That's fantastic news. That's what we want to see. Even if you take out the surprise donations, we were still up in revenue and we were still stronger than we were the year before. So that's all good news. If you put that in a chart and split it out over 3 years, the first set of numbers are the revenue numbers over 3 years. So you can see that last year was quite a bit higher than 2 years ago, and certainly higher than the immediately preceding year. Similarly, expenses did go up, but they were in line with 2 years ago, which was maybe a more relevant figure. And again, the loss was significantly less than the last 2 years. These bar charts are a packed in, so totally a fully loaded number, all overhead, all revenues, all expenses by meeting. And you can see there that when we put everything into this analysis, break it into 3 times a year, we are sort of above and below the line, depending on the meeting and depending on what expenses have happened. If you remove the overhead, that's this next chart. If you remove the overhead, all of our meetings are profitable. They just need to be profitable enough to cover all of our overhead. Does that all make sense? So these are the direct costs of running the meetings. Our meetings are profitable, but they haven't traditionally been quite profitable enough to cover all of our overhead for the year. These line charts, I hope the colors are a little bit difficult to see, but some good things in here. You can see registration numbers look like they're recovering. And this meeting, we were just over 800, so that was a good sign as well. You can see that we have had an increase in direct meeting expenses, but we have been able to maintain food and beverage. So that's been there's mixed news in there, but I think on the whole, things are looking not too badly. When we split out sponsorships by meeting sponsors versus our premium sponsors, the premium sponsors who are with us for a year, there was a slight drop off at the last meeting, but that's recovered. We don't have the numbers to show you today, but they've recovered for this meeting, and it looks like it will be a good year coming up. The budget for this year. So those are 2025 actuals, again, unaudited against our 2026 budget. Revenue, expenses, and change in net assets, which is the charity word for net income. This is an operating basis. So we have removed any government tax incentives. There was an ERC tax rebate or credit that we received last year. We removed these from these numbers, so we're comparing apples to apples, if you will. Last year, our budgeted loss was 307. We were at 124 loss. So we did much better than our budget. Again, much of that significantly due to those donations. But again, even without those donations, we did beat our budget last year. My goal for the year is to meet or beat that budget figure, and that's what the team is running towards. One thing I will say, a couple of the cities we're in this year are incredibly high cost. There are extra expenses due to union dues in those cities, and we respect those dues. We don't try to thwart them or go around them, but they do add to our costs quite significantly. So we would have been much closer to profitability this year if we were in different cities, but we're in the cities we're in, and we love those cities. So that's what's happening. Now, registration fee increase. You'll notice that last year we increased registration fees, and the plan this year is to not do a registration fee increase. We had a look at other events, very tough to compare who provides food, how much food do they provide, do they include the social event, don't they include the social event, how many days is it? When we looked at it, it wasn't obvious that we were behind any specific set of organizations or conferences. Again, we want to make our event top quality. We don't want you, when you go to get approval for it from your managers, for them to say, why is this one so much more? So we think we're in line with the industry. If anything, we're slightly cheaper than some of the events, but that analysis is a tough one to do. But we won't be doing any fee increase this year for registration. Organizational goals for the year. At the last meeting of the board in December, we approved the following goals for the organization this year. We've broken them into 3 categories: relevance and reach, financial stability, and operational excellence. Some of these you will see as members and some you won't. You may not see all of the operational excellence things. Many of those are hidden internally within the team, but certainly relevance and reach. We're aiming for a 10% increase in attendance over last year. We want to make NANOG known to a larger number of operators. This would be great for all of us, for sponsors, for attendees. And we actually have a pilot project we'll talk about on the next slide. Also looking to establish some key performance indicators that we'll track as board and management around relevance, around how often people are returning, and whether we can increase that, how we can increase that stickiness factor of NANOG. Meet or exceed the budget. That's a fairly obvious one. Those numbers are out in front of you. We are going to continue. We have put some key performance indicators in front of the committees. This is not so we can chastise or grade or mark the committees. Really, it's so that the committees can feel like they are contributing, not so they feel like they're contributing, so they know they're contributing to the organization and what we're trying to accomplish. And frankly, if all of the donated time that comes from you, our members, committee members, wasn't advancing the organization, we should figure out a different way to do things. So we are tracking that. We haven't published those. We use those internally so far. But as you're on committees, please help us help you sort of track how you're doing over time. We'll continue to formalize our marketing effort. And later this year, we'll be publishing 5-year goals. It's going to take us a little bit of time, but we're revisiting that over the next several meetings. NANOG Brand Ambassador Program. We're going to launch this as a pilot. We have noticed that many of you, our members, speak at other events. You organize other events, whether it's a NOG, whether it's a NUG. So what we'd like to do is, as you go out and about in the community of operators, if you are organizing or speaking at an event, and if that event organizer is willing to let you promote NANOG, we'll give you a brand ambassador kit. The idea is it's a backpack full of NANOG swag and some postcards. But again, we need the organizer's permission. I was at a Tornog event. Thank you, Mark. I don't know if you're in the room. Thank you for inviting me. And as the 3 speakers got up, 2 of them had laptops full of NANOG stickers, and they both referenced NANOG. And I'm sitting there thinking, all I need to do is ask Mark if we can put some NANOG, material on the desk at the back, on the registration desk. That's the kind of thing we're thinking about. The swag that will come in the brand ambassador backpack can be raffled. It can be just left at the registration table. Again, we need the permission of that event organizer. The backpack is yours to keep if you want it. If you don't want it, raffle it off at the event, give it to someone who's there. So if you're attending an event, speaking at an event, organizing an event, and would like to participate, send us an email. We'll get an email together for that, and we'll get you out some material. So as we formalize it, there will be a Google form. We're not sure how many. We've actually already had 3 people come forward as we've chatted about it casually and said they have events coming up in the next few months. We'd really appreciate any of your assistance on that. But it is a pilot. We'll see how it goes. It should be a great way of spreading the NANOG news and the NANOG content and education further into our operator community. I think I caught all of those points. You are our members. We are here at your behest. We serve on your behalf with you in the organization. There are many ways you can continue to participate, and I know I am proverbially speaking or preaching to the choir. The time you all give is incredible, and it is much valued. Some of you, you should all be members. Please keep that up. You can speak at our events, volunteer. You can help us find sponsors. As you are working with vendors, if you're an operator, ask them if they came to NANOG. Suggest they come. That's a very powerful, voice when the vendor says NANOG. Hopefully they know about us, but maybe they don't. It's been great. We have 7 new sponsors at this event, and a number of them heard through word of mouth or at other events. So you are a key part of that messaging. We've talked about charitable donations, and we have the brand ambassador pilot program. So those are a few of the updates from the organization, and open the floor to questions and hopefully some answers.
Morning. Hello. Yeah. Pardon me. Sorry. Ugh. Hi, Patrick Gilmore, representing Tigger. Not about the financials. They seem to be doing fine, although, and I'm sure everybody here is glad that it's looking better, but it is kind of funny seeing us, budget a 6-figure loss year after year. So, but understand it's a hard thing. Going back to the beginning of the presentation, Leslie talked about things like board capture. A little bit of history. We thought about that when we created the organization, and the line we came up with was if somebody, and we picked Cisco because they were a big thing back then.
Yeah.
If Cisco wants to pay 1,000 people, give 1,000 people $100 to all become members and then all vote for Cisco on the board, the answer was thank you, not how do we stop this? It's we just figure it'd be a donation. So I don't know what you're going to do about board capture, but we did consider it, and we just decided that we didn't care if somebody wanted to do that. It's an organization. If the members pick somebody, then the members pick somebody.
Thanks for the context and the history, and that may be the conclusion we come to again, right? But it seems to be worth exploring a little bit. Time passes, things change.
All right. And then regarding term limits, I'm sorry we weren't as clear as we were. I wish Steve were here because he wrote most of this himself, right?
Yeah, the text on the slide is courtesy of Steve.
Yeah. So
he is here. I'm sure he's online.
We considered it more like the U.S. president, where if you weren't eligible to do a full term, then you can't stand for election, and maybe we should have put that in there. But as a member, that's what I would advocate for. So that's my opinion. The rest of it, everybody else can decide to make theirs.
Great. Thanks.
Hi, Tony Tauber, Comcast. On the board capture thing, that's definitely a good thing, I think, to start to try and think through. One thing that comes to mind also, I'm serving on the election committee, and have experience in ranked choice voting elections, in other places. And I think this has just come into my mind, so it's not really fully formed, but slates are things that happen in ranked choice voting elections, and I think might sort of interact with the notion of board capture in a way. So it might be something to think about. I mean, actually trying to formally prohibit them is probably challenging, but thought I'd raise it.
You're reminding me of one other thing that I meant to say when I was talking about that I think one of the best ways to avoid board capture is to make sure that more members vote. The voter turnout has been pretty miserable for years. So if all members were actually voting, I think we could do a lot to avoid potential perturbations. So those thoughts too. Thanks.
I mean, the two things that protect us the most, right, are members voting, as many members voting as possible, and maybe a little bit of duration, so you can't all become members the same day and then do something at the whim of somebody who wants to spend a bunch of money.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that goes with the board. Members themselves have to have been involved for more than 2 nanogs or something. And I don't know what the answer is, and we're not sure we do. But I think our thought process is try to be as light touch on this as possible, because we don't want to get between the members and running the organization. It's not that at all, and we want to make sure we're not leaving that impression.
Tony, did we answer your question or address your comment? I'm not sure we did.
I think a bit. I'll just say, I think it may have even happened in the past, and I've seen it in, with slates and in other contexts where they come up, and I think I'm bringing it up here too because it's not in front of us, so I think it's easier to talk about. So you're not like trying to go against any particular, but like people come up with a slate and they say, I want to serve with these other people because we really do, we're aligned or we get along. We think we'll work really well together. And I think, and most, NANOG has a very small board. I mean, it's like, that I think raises
Slightly bigger than this, but yes,
raises
it's
the
still
risk,
not, it's still
really,
not large.
Yeah. Okay. So I've said enough.
Thanks.
Sorry, I'm shorter. My name's Kendra Pignotti, and I'm with Hurricane Electric on the board capture. Boy, that's a common theme. I've been coming to NANOGs for about a decade, and I have never seen any two board members from the same company. So I think we're panicking and writing rules for something that doesn't exist and has not existed. It tends to be John and I sat on the panel with Leslie. I ranked voted. I think the ranked voting and how we're doing it now is much better than how it was 3, 4, 5 years ago, because I think we're getting that. I do think I belong on to other GPF as well. They do have criteria for how long you have to be a member before you can vote, because you could fall into a situation where somebody from your organization registers, becomes a member for that meeting. I do think a member for a year or whatever before you know whether someone's running for a board is a valid something that should probably be in the bylaws. So that length of time and when do you fall off, that I think is a valid situation, because that wouldn't really be fair to the rest of the community that's been members for a long time. And again, I tend to be considered new in this industry with all of the rest of you a decade later, but I don't think it's fair to have a bunch of people from your company registering to vote to slide votes. I definitely don't think that's what happened. I think because the people that are on there, but in my tenure, I don't remember two people from any organization being on the board and it being that way. And you're going to have the larger companies have more people be on it. The smaller regional players tend to come when it's in that region. And I don't think we're going to ever be able to stop that.
We are not reacting to anything that has happened. One, two, light touch was John's word, and I think that would hold through. The other comment I would add is you don't think you need a first aid kit until you need a first aid kit, and you wish you had thought about it, months before. So we're having a look at it. We may
And
not.
as I said, the length of time
Yep.
as a member prior to voting, I think is definitely a valid thing to look
Thanks,
at
yeah.
for us.
Tom was next, and then I see some comments in the Zoom, so we'll go there before going back to the mic.
Staying on board capture?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Keep that, run that through.
Okay.
Okay. Very quickly, because I know we're lots of people, but one, as a member, I would argue against putting a time limit between becoming a member and trying to vote. If somebody wants to register that day and vote, I think you should be allowed to. Two, there have been people on the board that were in the same company. Again, historically, we thought about that and we didn't care because you are a member, not a representative of your company.
Yep.
So an individual is on the board, and legally speaking, you're a fiduciary of this corporation. So if you do something that benefits your company, it's not just bad for NANOG, it's actually can get you into legal trouble. And anybody who doesn't realize that should not be running for board.
Thanks.
Now, I will point out that I'm keenly aware of how long you have to have been a member before you can run for the board, et cetera, because although I've participated in NANOG since the early aughts, off and on, I wasn't actually a member until June of 2022, I guess, when there was an interim vacancy and I was asked to fill it. So yeah, I'm an edge case.
And mine is just also on the topic. I'll just elaborate to say that again, Tony Tauber from Comcast, with board capture, I don't think it can be more challenging, but I think more expansively about just people at the same company, representing some notion of board capture. That's all I'll say. I know it's challenging.
Okay, Tom, and then we're going to go to Zoom.
Good morning, Tom Beecher, Yahoo. Not about board capture. You can all stay free range. Do what you want. Elections committee had on, just to briefly comment, you made the point, we talked about this last night, about participation in elections. We did tick up a few percentage points this time through. We spent a lot of time in the last year trying to come up with solutions to this problem. I'm not gonna say we hit a wall, but it's been challenging to really get concrete answers. So more of a comment for the members here and everyone online. We'd like to hear from all of you. What are the reasons you don't vote if you don't? We're really struggling to, and again, this is even from our technical side, like we have to understand the problem before we can solve it. We've spitballed a ton of ideas. Some of them seem to be pretty good. Some of mine have generally been bad, but it's okay. But we really want to know from everyone else, why don't you? Because this is a topic that's come up for years. Historically, we're better in the last 10 years than maybe the early aughts. I think it's like 15-ish percentage points higher. We would like to know. Please reach out to any of us on the committee, whatever. I'll probably spam something to the members list at some point. It's been on our list for a while, but we want to get it better. We don't know why. So just general comment from membership on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Hossein Badran, oops, oh dear, it scrolled off. Hossein Badran was asking, he said he had heard that there was interest in getting more operators involved. How would we want to go about that? And Jonathan, I think you have those answers.
We have some ideas. So one was the brand ambassador program, try and get the NANOG message out. Internet 2 and Aaron have been very helpful in handing out basic material about NANOG. I think you will see NANOG presence at other events through the year. We kind of had two efforts we wanted to look at this year. And one of them we went with was the brand ambassador program. We didn't have unlimited budget, but we've also been talking with ICANN about how we might be more involved with them going forward as well.
Okay, the rest of the Zoom chat is focused on the board capture question, and just general suggestions about making sure that there's thoughtful, active engagement in our process as opposed to fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I see that Steve Ulrich has joined us and is at the back of the room, so everybody can wave to Steve. Steve is waving back. I'm not sure. Okay, there is one more question. Steve, please do feel free to come up and join us on the stage.
Hi, Steve. Yeah. Question, yeah.
Okay, next question.
Brian, you're up.
I thought we were waiting for somebody else, and I was trying to gather my thoughts. So, okay, I'm tall. So I have a question about the proposal that the board might be able to remove a board member, kind of a thing. Again, with supermajority, generally don't have an issue with boards being able to do that. That's something that, Robert's Rules of Order. I know we don't use that, but it's in there. However, we have kind of a small board for that. And there's 7 voting members on the board. However, I believe one is the executive director who is appointed by the board, so probably wouldn't be voting in that motion. I don't know if that's the case. That leaves 6. You're assuming the one person the motion is about is going to not be voting because it would be a conflict, I would assume, or they're going to obviously be voting for themselves. So that what's the supermajority there? 4 people. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it'd kind of have to be unanimous, right? And it just seems like it seems kind of small.
So why don't we walk you through the
That's right.
spitballing? Just since you asked the question, I think kind of what has been spitballed internally is that, and this is totally not final, but I think it's worth saying is that it would have to be basically everybody except the one board member, probably also the executive director if we can figure out how to make that work, and you'd only be able to do it one over a certain interval, probably 1 year. Basically, we're trying to make sure we're not creating the impression that you can stack the board with your friends. It's purely a way to have a removal option if there's an issue that can't be brought before the members in an expeditious way to solve the problem.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not necessarily. I don't have a position one way or another. I was just thinking about how that could possibly be
You're having the right
numbers-wise.
concerns. So I
Yeah.
think what we're saying.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I would add on the flip side, because it's not a very large board, when there is one member that is, unavailable or otherwise it is in question, then it can really undermine the ability for the board to continue to work effectively and get its work done, which is why you want this sort of process available.
Yeah, I understand. I appreciate that. I'll probably grab a board member and talk to you a little more because I'm running the devil's advocate on anything I see.
Appreciate it.
Good. Yep.
And you should, because we're trying to think about the same thing, right? We won't always be the people here, and it's got to work.
Matthew Petach adds, "Is our board too small? Should we add more directors?"
I mean, my take is the answer to that's no, because there's a line between effectiveness. So, like, at least my board experience is the more members, the lower the velocity in general on everything, and the bigger the time commitment from every member. So it's a question of volunteer boards and the time commitment of the people and moving it effectively forward. There's a reason like a city council is way less effective than a smaller like private company corporate board. And I don't mean that in any kind of bad way to the people involved. It's just sort of the way board governance plays out. And so, at least from my standpoint, I think our board size is quite effective, and it's hard to capture with one or two people. It's big enough for that, but it's small enough to be reasonably nimble, and I think that's valuable to the organization. And NANOG's also just simply not that big in terms of organization size.
Vince, are you getting ready to say something? I am noting that end of the seats is quite quiet, so y'all are welcome to jump in.
Been a couple more comments. Do you want to read those out, Leslie?
So Kat Gorinsky, for what it's worth, I am all for this process of being able to remove a board member. Happy to talk about it as well, even though I have stepped down, which was completely voluntary and my choice. And Dinesh Babuda says, I would counter that, although I'm not sure which that is. Why does the size thing, why does anyone think it is too small considering the reason NANOG exists? And the answer to that, I think, is the point about if you're down a member and you're trying to do still trying to be functional and or still trying to figure out how to get a supermajority to remove a member, is it then really too small? But yeah. And Daryl adds, but I'll add a +1 on light touch. The board has advocated and not trying to fully solve various edge cases. Find time to spend and improve, but light touch sounds right. Agree, John, small but big enough to absorb some turnover. And I think turnover is part of the challenge too, right? So yeah. So this is a space that we're rolling around in. As I said, we don't have conclusions at this point. We appreciate the input that you've offered this morning, and certainly we'll be happy to talk about it more in the hallways and on email between meetings. And we will surface what looks like directions that seem appropriate to move when that becomes clearer.
I think this brings up a theme that we're trying to do in general is not surprise the membership with any rapid changes where we talk about them, give ourselves time. That's in line with our discussion about prices. We want to make sure when we change, prices, we wait and give you guys a few meetings notice. We should not be exciting. And that
we aim to be boring.
Good.
Any other questions?
thank you all for your time this morning and for your commitment to NANOG. And it's a pleasure serving you. We are here, come ask us questions now in the hallways, at the espresso bar, wherever it works. Thank you.
And consider volunteering for a committee. Thank you.
Yes, please volunteer. Like we always need more committee members.
Recruit others too.
Participate, get people to vote. Thank you.
I'm a very benevolent dictator.